I directed this show that you are about to see. Don't go to the set because that's not my set. Amanda Marie Duffee, director at 17.
Story balcony?
Yes. Yes, she did.
Remarkable, really, that she wasn't killed. Head contusions, dislocated shoulder, fracture of the left leg. Miss Ross, will you sit down? Mr. Ross? Miss Winfield?
You said versus. Not my wife, there's not bad news.
No, Miss Winfield, there's no bad news.
Thank God. You said versus how she had taken a turn for the worse.
There is no change of any kind, either for the worse, nor less, for the better.
Is my sister still unconscious?
She is still completely paralyzed. She cannot see or hear.
Oh, it's terrible. Simply terrible. Was Miss Jackson with you?
Yes, she was following us. Dr. Ginsberg, Miss Jackson, secretary.
Miss Jackson.
Poor Jenny. Sometimes I feel it would have been better if she'd been killed outright by the fall.
No, anything but that.
I know how you feel, Bryan, but this, I mean, it's a living death, isn't it, Doctor?
There's still some hope for your sister, Mr. Ross.
But she won't stay like this. I mean, she'll get better, won't she?
Cases of this kind, it's very difficult to forecast the progress of a patient. The bones will knit, the dislocation has already
The result of her accident?
The accident was the ostensible cause.
Just what do you mean by ostensible?
Mrs. Wingfield must have suffered unusual fears as she fell from the balcony. It is not so much her physical injuries, but something in her mind that has produced this state of complete paralysis.
Wait a minute. You're not saying what I'm sure that the inspector has been more or less suggesting that my wife tried to commit suicide? Now that I don't believe for a moment.
I haven't said I thought it was suicide, Mr. Wingfield.
You must be thinking something, or else you and your people wouldn't be hanging around here like a bunch of vultures.
We have to be quite clear as to the cause of this accident.
My God, isn't it simple enough? She'd been ill for months, up for the first time, or practically the first time, got up, went over to the window, out onto the balcony, leant over, and suddenly was taken giddy and fell to the ground. That balcony's very low.
Don't get so excited, William. Don't shout.
It's all very well, Bunny, but it makes me mad, all this business. Do you think it pleasant for us having the police mixing themselves up in our family affairs?
Now, Bill, if there's anybody that's speaking right here right now, it's me, and I don't.
What have we been asked to come here for?
Who knows, Miss Jackson? Miss Ross, I wish to discuss a little bit more about your sister. Was she at all inclined to it's melancholy or depression?
She was always highly strung, nervous.
I wouldn't say that at all.
Men don't realize these things. I know what I'm talking about. I think it's quite possible, Inspector, that her illness had left her particularly low and depressed, and that with other things she had to worry and distress her.
Where are you going, Miss Jackson?
I'm leaving. I'm not one of the family. I'm only Mr. Wingfield's secretary. I don't see the point of all this. I was asked to come here with the others, but all you're going to do is go over and over again about the accident. Whether it was an accident or attempted suicide, I don't see why I should stay.
But it's not going to be the same thing over and over again, Miss Jackson. We are about to conduct an experiment.
An experiment? What kind of experiment?
You're about to find out. Sit down, Miss Jackson. Mr. Ginsberg?
Perhaps I had better recapitulate what I know or have been told. Mrs. Wingfield has been suffering in the last 2 months from an illness somewhat mysterious in nature, which was puzzling the doctor in attendance on her, Dr. Horsfield. This I have on the authority of Dr. Horsfield himself. She was, however, showing decided signs of improvement and was convalescent, though there was still a nurse in the house. On the day in question, exactly 10 days ago, Mrs. Wingfield got up from bed after lunch and was seated by Nurse Bond in an easy chair near the open window, it being a fine, mild afternoon. She had books beside her and a small radio. And foreseeing that her patient had all she needed, Nurse went out for her afternoon walk as usual. What happened during the course of the afternoon is a matter of conjecture. But at 3:30, a cry was heard. Miss Ross, who was sitting in the room below, saw a falling body across the window. It was the body of Mrs. Wingfield, who had fallen from the balcony of her room. There was no one with her at the time when she fell, but there were 4 people in the house. The 4 people who are assembled here now.
Perhaps, Mr. Wingfield, would you like to tell us from your own words what happened just then?
Thought that I didn't know where enough already. It's in my study correcting the proofs when I heard it scream and whisper outside. Got to the terrace, there was poor Jenny lying on the ground. Emmaline joined me a moment later, followed by Bill and Miss Jackson. Telephone for the doctor.
Fine.
Yes, Mr. Wingfield, you go into your home. Miss Jackson. Tell us what's that in store.
I had been asked to look up a reference in the encyclopedia for Mr. Wingfield. I was in the library and I heard a commotion and people running. I dropped the book and came out and joined them on the terrace.
Miss Ross?
What? Oh, I've been playing golf all the morning. Always play golf on a Saturday. I went in, eaten a hearty lunch, and was feeling whacked. I lay down on my bed upstairs. It was Jenny's scream that woke me up. I thought for a moment I must have been dreaming. And then I heard the row down below, and I looked out of my window. And there she was on the terrace with all the others gathered round. Oh, God, do we have to go over this again and again?
I only want to make it clear that nobody who was in this house actually knows what happened.
perfectly simple as I said all along. Jenny thought she was stronger than she was. She went out on the balcony, leant over, and that's that. Perfectly simple accident. It might have happened to anyone.
She should have been by herself. Blame myself for thinking her wrong.
But she was supposed to rest in the afternoon, Bryan. That was part of the doctor's orders. We were all going to join her at 4:30 for tea, but she was supposed to rest every afternoon from 3 o'clock until then.
Yes, but Miss Ross, the accident seems a little bit difficult to explain. You see, the railings in the balcony do not give way.
No, I leant over afterwards to test it out.
Yes, but Miss Ross, Mrs. Wingfield is a very small person. It was easier for her that as if she was taken in.
I think you're right in what you suspect. I think poor Jenny was worried and troubled in her mind. I think a fit of depression had come over her.
You keep trying to say she committed suicide. I don't believe that. I won't believe it.
She had plenty to make her depressed.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, you know quite well what I mean. I'm not blind, Bryan.
Jenny wasn't depressed. She had nothing to be depressed about. You are an evil woman, Emmaline, and you are imagining.
Leave my sister alone.
It was an accident! I mean, of course it was an accident. Miss Ross is just trying to... Guess what am I trying to do? It's women like you who write anonymous letters. Poison pen letters. Just because no man has ever looked at you. Oh, how dare you!
Women, cut it out!
Listen! I think we're all a little overexcited here. We're talking about things that need not all be talked about. What we need to focus on is what was Jenny's state of mind before she said it. A lot of us, and I know her better than anybody. And I tell you, she did not try to commit suicide.
Because you don't want to think so. You don't want to feel responsible.
What do you mean responsible?
Driving her to do what she did.
How dare
Please, I did not ask you to come here to create an argument. I didn't want to provoke recriminations.
Wasn't she? I'm not so sure about that.
No, what I had in mind was to conduct an experiment.
We've already been told that. You haven't told us what kind of experiment.
As Inspector Cray just now said, only one person knows what happened that afternoon, Mrs. Wingfield.
And she can't tell us how unfortunate.
She will when she's better.
I don't think you quite appreciate the medical position here, Miss Ross. It may be months, it may even be years before Mrs. Wingfield comes out of the state.
Surely not.
Yes, Mr. Wingfield, I won't go into a lot of medical details. There are people who have gone blind as a result of shock and not recovered their sight for 15 or 20 years. There have been those paralyzed for the same periods of time. Sometimes another shock precipitates recovery, but there's no fixed rule. Inspector, would you please call the nurse?
Nurse?
I don't quite understand your driving there, Doctor.
You'd like to find out?
Miss Jackson?
Jenny, darling.
What's going on here? What are you trying to do?
I said Mrs. Wingfield is unable to communicate with us. But I think her mind is as keen as it ever was. She knows what happened to her on that afternoon. Unfortunately, she's unable to tell us.
You think she can hear us right now? You think she knows what we're saying, what we're feeling?
I think she knows.
Jenny, darling. I know things are terrible for you.
Lansen!
And things are going to be okay. I'm ready for you.
I said Mrs. Wingfield could not communicate with us, but it is possible that a way has been found. Mr. Lansen here has fixed up a certain apparatus of an electrical nature. You see, there is a small rubber ball. When the ball sign of collapse, you know what to do.
Yes, Doctor.
Mrs. Wingfield, you have had a very narrow escape from death. You're on your way to recovery. If you can hear me and understand what I'm saying, I want you to try to move your fingers so that you press the ball. Will you do so now? You have heard and understood what we've been saying, Mrs. Wingfield? Good. What I propose is this. The answer to a question is yes, you press the ball once. The answer is no, you will press it twice. Do you understand? What is the signal for no? I think then it must be clear to all of you, Mrs. Wingfield can understand what I'm saying and respond to my questions. I'm going back to Saturday the 14th. Have you a clear recollection of what happened on that afternoon? As far as possible, I will ask you questions that will save you too much fatigue. I am assuming, therefore, that you got up from bed and that nurse settled you in a chair by the window. You were alone in your room with the window open and you were supposed to rest until 4:30. Am I correct? Did you, in fact, sleep a little? And then you woke up. You went out onto the balcony. You leant over. You lost your balance and fell. Just a minute, Lansen. You fell, but you did not lose your balance. You were giddy, felt faint.
Inspector, I hope. Can't possibly.
Wait a minute. Mrs. Wingfield, we've come to the point where you have to tell us what happened. I'm going to say over the letters of the alphabet. When I come to the letter of the word you want you to press the ball. I'll begin. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, P. And the letter P. I'm going to hazard a guess here. Is the word in your mind pushed?
No, that can't be true.
That's iniquitous.
Quiet, please. Mrs. Wingfield, obviously have more to tell us. I'm going to spell again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, that letter M is probably followed by a vowel. Which vowel is it? A, E, I, O, U, M, U. Is the next letter R? Mrs. Wingfield, are you trying to tell us that what happened on that afternoon was not an accident? Are you trying to tell us that it was attempted murder?
Oh.
It's your
Did someone come in? Mrs. Wingfield, did someone come in from outside and attack you? Was it someone in the house who pushed you?
Doctor, your pulse is quick.
My God.
Not much good. Must have been day.
Mrs. Wingfield, do you know who pushed you? I'm going to spell out the name. Do you understand? Good. A, B, B, is that right?
Doctor, she's collapsed.
Nurse, it's no good. I hear her run.
Is she okay? Is she okay? Jenny. Is she okay?
She'll be all right. We must move her back. We should be able to resume in about half an hour. The strain has been too much. Put her by the window. She'll be all right there.
No, can't go out. It's too dangerous for her.
You must allow me to be the best judge
always been. I tell you right now, I did not try to kill my brother.
So you deny having an affair with that woman? That's not true. Don't tell me that. You were head over ears in love with him. All right, then. I was in love with him. But that was all over ages ago. He never really cared for me. It's all over, I tell you. It seems odd that you stayed on as his secretary then. I didn't want to go. Right. I still wanted to be near him. Oh, so maybe you thought that with Jenny out of the way, you'd console him very nicely and become Mrs. Wingfield number 2. No! Waiting for Brenda. I hate you! It's not true!
Bryan and Brenda. It seems to narrow down to one of you two, all right?
I wouldn't say that. It could be beaten for Bill or brother.
She always called me William.
In either case, who stands to inherit in case of Jenny's death? Not me. No, it's you two, brother and sister. You inherit in case of her death. It would make all the sense in the world for it to you two. B for brother.
I can't handle this argument. Patient must rest. Nurse, you take it downstairs.
You can't stay in a small room like this without all of us slanging each other.
You may go where you like the hospital premises, but none of you to actually leave the place. Is it understood?
All right.
Yes.
I have no wish to leave. My conscience is clear. I think you did it. What do you mean? You hate her. You've always hated her, and you get the money. You and your brother. My name does not begin with a B, I'm thankful to say. No, but it needn't. Supposing that after all Mrs. Wingfield didn't see who it was who pushed her off the balcony. She has told us that she did, but supposing that she didn't. Don't you see what a temptation it would be to her? She was jealous of me and Bryan. She knew about us, and she was jealous, and when that machine there gave her a chance to get back at us, at me, don't you see what a temptation it would be to say, Brenda pushed me? It could have been like that, it could. No, it isn't. Not to a jealous woman. You don't know what women are like when they're jealous. And she had been cooped up there in that room thinking, suspecting, wondering if Bryan and I were still carrying on together. It could easily be true. It's not far-fetched.
It is possible, you know, Inspector.
And you do hate her. Me? My own sister? I've seen you looking at her often. You were in love with Bryan. He was half engaged to you before Jenny came home from abroad and cut you out. She told me the whole story one day. You've never forgiven her. I think you've hated her ever since. I think you came into her room that day. You saw her leaning over the balcony and it was too good a chance to be missed. I think you came up behind her and pushed her over. Inspector, can't you stop this kind of thing?
I'm afraid I must insist on your leaving. The patient has to rest. She should be able to resume in about 20 minutes. Nurse will take you downstairs.
Miss Ross, mind waiting for a moment. There are questions I should like to ask you.
Well, what is it?
Well, I have a confession, brother.
Miss William, you don't know him. He has no self-respect at all. Never ashamed to admit that it is no return for the next penny.
Yes, that's very interesting. But it was actually a written law that I think that's the question we got to ask you.
Oh, Bryan, what do you want to know?
Miss Ross, you know the family very well. The person of your intelligence will not be seen as a one on him. You know the lives of your brother-in-law and sister very well, and the relationship between them. It was reasonable that up to now you would say as little as you could. But now that you know what our suspicions are and the way they've been confirmed over the minute or so ago, well, that alters matters, doesn't it?
Yes, I suppose it does. What do you want me to tell you?
There's a affair between Mr. Wingfield and Miss Jackson. Was it serious?
Not on his part. His affairs never are.
But there actually was an affair.
Of course. You
had some particular fancy in mind, I think.
She was just upset. She was ill, you see, and she felt she wasn't making the progress she should have done.
She thought there was a reason for that?
She was just upset.
She thought there was a reason for that.
Yes.
She thought those two were poisoning her, that's it, isn't it?
Yes.
She said so to you?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I told her it was nonsense, of course.
Did you take any steps yourself?
What do you mean?
Did you discuss with the doctor attending her? Take any samples of food?
Of course not. It was just a sick woman's fancy.
Well, it happens, you know, far more often than is known. Symptoms of arsenic poisoning. It's almost always arsenic. Practically indistinguishable from gastric disorder.
Bryan couldn't. He just couldn't.
Might have been the girl.
Yes, I suppose so. But we shall never know now.
Quite wrong there, Miss Ross. There are ways to tell me. Traces of arsenic can be found in the hair, you know, and in the fingernails.
I just can't believe it. He couldn't. Do you need me any longer, Inspector?
No, Miss Ross, you know, I'll keep this 10 minutes.
Yes, of course.
Well. Yes.
Yes. A meat basin hole. Interesting.
Is writing.
Oh, it's right because it's handwritten, right? You know, it goes quite well for the ladies. All over like 9 minutes. Unfortunately, there was no conspiracy.
Doesn't strike me as the Casanova type. Writes all those historical novels. Very erudite.
Well, there's quite a lot of dirt in history.
Yes, so it wasn't all over?
You bore people all end up accusing each other. Get a bitter and a malicious woman on her own and might just spill the beans. There's women to work on, doesn't it?
So, in addition to what you had already, what did you have?
Just a few solid facts. I went to financial aid. Bryan Wingfield's a poor man. His wife's a rich woman. Her license showed a gift, not for a very arse, but it would be willing to marry him if he wanted to. Her money given her into a trust. She dies childless. The money's divided between her brother and sister. Rose of Wallstrom always trying to get money out of his rich sister. According to Bryan, she said she was going to pay him and leave on her. I dare say she would have done so at the end.
So, which is it? B for Bryan? B for Brenda? B for Brother Bill? Or Emmaline without a B? Could it be B for burglars?
No, there's definitely out. There's some evidence on that. The road left in front of the house, both the front and side gate directly under the house was high. Nobody entered or left the house without getting in.
I'm a little puzzled, Inspector. You asked me to cooperate, but you were very careful not to put all your cards on the table. Tell me, what do you think?
It's not a question of thinking. I know.
What?
Well, I could be wrong. I don't think so. Figure it out. Call 7 minutes.
Huh? Oh, of course. Mrs. Wingfield? I'm the crucial part of the experiment, Mrs. Wingfield.
Mrs. Wingfield, we are about to hear about what happened in the garden. None of the suspects know that you covered your powers of speed yesterday. They also don't know that you do not, in fact, have pushed you off that balcony. Do you understand what this means? One of them will most certainly enter this room.
I'm sure you want to go through with this, Mrs. Wingfield.
Yes, I must be afraid. If anyone approaches you or tries to touch you, I know what to do. Make cases when you feel one impressed. Just try to be brave a few moments longer. Trust me. Just won't trust me.
Ready?
Right.
Perhaps you'd like to step into my office, view this poisoning suggestion. Maybe you'd like to look over the files.
Yes, I And the constable on duty, he swears nobody entered or left the house now. So it would seem you didn't take your afternoon walk that day, did you? Bring him out behind the curtain now, Miss Bond.
I directed this.